So now I would like to pass it on to our speaker today, Arec. And Arec, you have the ability to share your screen now.
Woohoo! I have the power. We're going to pivot from your typical networking meeting now, and it's going to be an easy shift for some people and maybe more difficult for others. So we're gonna get a little loose with it. We're going to open up and drop our barriers. We're going to be unafraid to share our ideas. We're going to be unafraid to disagree with other people. And we're going to jump into creating something on the fly, improvisation style on the scratch. And what we're going to make is a murder mystery story. Okay. Now, this is the process that I follow when I make a new murder mystery game. And let's get the share screen rolling here. All right, so a little bit about me. Again, my name is Arec Ligon. My company is Deadly Distractions, and this is the demo version of the Murder Mystery Workshop. This event typically runs like 2 to 3 hours for a group of 6 to 12 people, and we're gonna jump right in with it. I usually start with an icebreaker. That introduction portion served as our icebreaker today, but I'd like to get people's creative juices flowing early. In fact, as soon as possible. I started Deadly Distractions last year as a hobby because we could all use a little bit of distraction. I went full time with it in April of this year. And I write the games, I host parties, private parties, corporate parties. I'm going to be on stage on Friday. I have 9 shows in the Broad Ripple and Fishers area of Indianapolis. And my partner is named Mitch Walker, and he's out in Denver, Colorado, helps with a lot of the back end website and ideas and feedback type things for me. All right, what we're here for, the murder mystery part. My role in this is not to make decisions for you. You are making the decisions. My job is to figure out what path the group would like to take, and then make sure you get there in as easy a way as we can. So if I foresee some obstacles with some of our decisions, or I see that there's something that's going to be a conflict point between one idea and another idea, I'll bring those up so we can talk about them and avoid the obstacles altogether. But otherwise, I'm just here to make sure we all have fun along the way. The first piece that we talk about, this major section, is world building. So what are the rules of the universe that we're going to put this murder mystery story in? And let's turn on the... Okay, that's cool. All right, so the part that we're going to focus on is the setting, theme, and tone. It's a little bit more interesting than the technical decisions. And since we don't have time for everything, got to start somewhere. But this is how it works. I explain what realish versus fantasy means as the first decision point. All right, so think about something that is set in a realistic setting, your favorite shows, movies, books, things like that. I've got a few examples on here. Ocean's 11 is mostly grounded in reality, the Sherlock Holmes movies. And then you contrast that with a fantasy setting. So where there are extraordinary things that defy the laws of nature and physics and all that stuff. So Harry Potter being a magical setting, and then Hunger Games as like an advanced technology. That advanced technology is the method that they use to make things that would be impossible possible. So this is where you guys come in. And if we're quiet, I'll call on people, but we've got a big enough group that I think we'll have some ideas. Who is feeling inclined toward having a realistic setting or a fantasy type setting?
Fantasy. I go for fantasy.
I say fantasy.
I'll vote.
I vote fantasy as well.
Chaster, let's stick with you for a moment. Tell me why you're feeling fantasy today.
I'm always in that mood.
Okay.
I'll default to that.
And what's give me a little bit more on what kind of fantasy setting you would like to explore inside of this murder mystery building thing today.
I am more of a sci-fi kind of guy, so maybe we can go out into space, or we can. Whoa, I'm open to ideas.
No, that's great. This is how it works. We start somewhere, and now we've got an idea. We've got space in maybe a futuristic setting for a sci-fi type thing.
Be on the moon in a moon colony. That'd be an interesting place for murder.
Yeah. Did I hear Bill chime in? Or who was that chimed in after Chaster?
I think that was me, Andy.
Oh, okay. Andy, tell me what you're feeling for the fantasy type setting.
Well, so the space got me thinking like an asteroid or something. That was where I was going with that. And I'm the same way. Like you start bringing in magic. Like I feel like that's always more interesting. Like I don't the realism. I spend enough time in reality. Like I find the fantasy to be interesting. And I don't know. Fantasy. Yeah, I mean, I like the moon idea, but I was thinking when Chester started talking, I was thinking more like an asteroid, be on an asteroid somewhere.
Okay, cool.
I like it.
Andy brings up a good point about murder mysteries, and really most types of media are about escapism and getting to live a life that's different than the one you currently live in, and that's part of the appeal of of what I do in the party hosting. But all right, does anyone not want to do space? Let's get some conflict going. Is space a turnoff for anybody, or can we roll forward?
I'm good with space.
Let's go with space. I kind of like that idea.
All right, cool. One of the, in a team building setting, one of the skills that I try to teach with this is the avoidance of anchoring. Anchoring is latching onto the first idea that comes up and saying, "Oh, that sounds good enough." And I'll push you guys a little bit more on the next few decisions on getting some additional ideas that we can talk about the pros and cons and things like that. But bit of a peek behind the curtain on how this normally goes. All right, so our next decision is choosing a location. We've had a couple of ideas already, but we're going to try to answer two questions with the location. And the first is, why are we being the people in the Zoom meeting today, why are we gathered and why are we isolated? And this is important for a murder mystery setting. There has to be something that brings us all together, some kind of an event or a reason that we're all in the same place. Let's imagine for a moment that we're all in the bank, and some of us are here for deposits, some of us are working, some of us are perhaps robbing the bank, some of us are possibly working on the roof, but there's a reason that we're all in the bank area, right? And then for isolation, for murder mysteries, it really helps if there's a reason that we can't just leave. Like, why do we have to solve the murder instead of just leaving or calling the authorities, or I don't know. So let's brainstorm a few location ideas that could possibly answer those questions in different ways.
I mean, being set in space, fleeing Earth from a major catastrophe is a pretty good motivation to travel pretty far.
Still on the asteroid, I like the idea of one of the miners on the asteroid getting murdered, and now we got to figure it out. What's going on here? We're the company. We don't want to get the Earth Federation involved, and don't mind me. I like science fiction. Don't mind me. I'm going to take over the conversation if you let me.
You want the guy to be killed to be drilled, don't you, Chester?
Yeah, just like Armageddon.
Let's get Jeanette. Jeanette, what is a different location in space that we could potentially use?
How about an asteroid?
So we've got asteroid, we've got mining colony, we've got spaceship. Can you think of any others that could work?
Okay. I don't know, a space colony that's already been established. I'm a Star Trek fan, the original Star Trek. So they had colonies that were established in outer space.
Okay, very cool. All right, so it sounds like the mining operation on an asteroid is the crowd favorite so far. Any other ideas that we want to throw out?
I had thoughts about. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ron.
I was going to say Mars because we're going to colonize on Mars at some point.
Have a Martian colony. So that's interesting. So why are we, in all of these colony ideas, what could be a reason that how many of us are there? There's like 12 of us or 16 of us. Why are we isolated from the rest of humanity?
We can't leave our area because we've been told that outside of our area is deadly, like radiation.
All right. There is a barrier between us and the rest of the world, and that barrier can be a pathogen or radiation, or I don't know, maybe even something evil is out there. But those would all be interesting ideas.
I'll throw out a wacky idea just to mix it up a little bit. We're all cheese lovers. We heard the moon is made of cheese, so we go out there, but we're lactose intolerant. Nobody wants to come near us. So we kind of have to figure it out for ourselves.
Interesting. We are outcast. So it wasn't our choice to leave the rest of the people. The rest of the people left us, and we are excluded.
Absolutely.
That's a different direction we can take with it. Yeah. Let's circle back to that decision. And I think this would be a good point to decide if we want a more silly type story, serious, or deep, wide. And that's actually 4 different things. It's a 2-directional, grid. But anyway, I think they're pretty.
I'll go with Josh's little moldy cheese idea. That we're outcast because not only because we're maybe lactose intolerant, but we cause mold. So nobody wants us on the moon. They have launched us to Mars, which is made of fungi.
I love it. Now we're digging deep for the ideas. I love it. All right. So we've got some serious ideas. We've got some silly ideas. Let's go ahead and pin down where we would like to be. Let's hear from, I don't think we've heard from Claire yet. I don't have gallery view. Is she gone? She gone. Okay. Let's hear from Ryan. What are you feeling?
I like the idea of Mars because humanity's already been to the moon several times. We've also been in low Earth orbit for the last 50 years. It's time to go a little further out.
How do you feel on the silly to serious spectrum? What's your mood today?
I don't know. The silly seems like we could bend reality a lot more to make the circumstances more dramatic and, alter the story exactly where we want it to go, versus serious might have to subscribe to all of our existing understanding of sci-fi shows or stories.
That's a really good point. We get a lot more flexibility with if we're not taking ourselves seriously.
I'll second that.
All right, so we're leaning silly. And then when we're constructing the world, this is more just something to keep in mind, but when I'm making a murder mystery game and I'm deciding what the rules are, the more things you add, the more complicated it gets, and then you wind up with something where you have to, like J.R.R. Tolkien, you have to invent languages, you have to develop millions of years of cosmic history and struggles between deities that have been around since the dawn of time, and how that has influenced everything up until this point. Now, the silly setting means that we can kind of just hand wave and explain those things away, but we'll want to recognize that adding things to the game does increase a little bit of, or it makes it a little bit more difficult to balance and develop. All right, and then let's settle once and for all on a location based on the silly setting. We've got votes for Mars. Does anyone want to advocate for a different setting that they're feeling strongly about? I won't make you, but we could use a devil's advocate.
I mean, Mars feels too realistic to me, honestly. We should go someplace outside our galaxy, or, find a, we've been banished to some spot in some other galaxy, maybe.
Andy, where would we find a cheese created environment?
On LQ40-PQ.
Spell that in the chat for us. And suddenly we've got more range. So once we get those world building decisions made, and there's a lot more that goes into that process, but once we establish the setting that we're going to be in, then we talk about our characters. And each person here in the meeting today would create their own character. But we would start as a group and then split off individually, where you would put more work into the character that you're building. And then we would come back together, compare notes, and make sure that all of these characters fit together based on the decisions that you've made. So some of the things that you'll want to think about are your role in the group. And it's important that we all have different types of roles. And it's important because these people would have access to different types of information. They could find different clues. The role itself could lend itself to a plot point or some piece of action, but we are the outcast colonists who are threatening the cheese environment on Elkier 4Q something. What are some roles that would make sense in that kind of game? And I don't think we've heard from Max, if you want to kick us off with some ideas. I think you're muted.
Yeah. Thinking to it, it's very, there are a lot of parts. Not sure to connect them together.
All right. Who wants to give it a shot?
I was thinking we need like a head cheese, like a top person, a leader of some sort.
That's an important role in any group, right?
The moldiest of any of us.
And then you need a cheese maker.
Sure. Someone should maintain the cheese.
Would it be copyright infringement to say to moldly go where no one's gone before?
I love it. What are some other roles that would make sense in this group?
Well, you need someone to import crackers and wine to go with the cheese.
Don't importer, exporter. Yeah.
Okay, so trade. Trade introduces the idea that we can have things here that we normally wouldn't.
security to protect our cheese and cheese making equipment.
Yeah, who's the enforcer?
A bouncer,
Maybe a-
cheese bouncer.
Well, we need quality control. So like a cheese grater, for example.
It's great.
We have discovered a new power inside the cheese, a combination of elements that give more power to humans.
I love it. Max, follow-up question for that. Do you feel like this person is more spiritual or scientific?
Hmm. Don't really know. I like spiritual. Yeah, I like the idea.
So we have a mystic.
Hmm.
A mystic in our group, more a cheese shaman, perhaps.
Okay.
What about the one person who's lactose intolerant, who hates cheese and just wants to get rid of it all, wants to banish it, like Lactose Larry or something? That could be our nemesis.
Yeah. Introducing a little bit of conflict in the group is healthy, and it helps move the plot forward. Also gives us an opportunity to introduce red herrings, unless they actually did it and it's not a red herring. But yeah. All right, we've got some great ideas. So you would decide for yourself what role you want. I would have a list of all of these, and we would pick and choose who's going to be what. Very important to give your character flaws as well as strengths. So when you're thinking about your character, what are they good at, but also what are they not good at? And I always like to talk about myself here as a confident person. A natural flaw for me is overconfidence, or sometimes perceived as arrogant, or what have you. Someone who is really good at calculating and thinking ahead in different moves could be seen as cold and impractical in the real world, things like that. So your strengths and your flaws are usually tied together. From a story and dialogue perspective, adding in preferences, quirks, catchphrases, and or dislikes help give a lot of realism to your character, and it makes them easier to portray that character, whether it's scripted or not. So if you have someone who, let's see, who wants to do a Mad Lib for me real quick? All right, let's say Bill. Bill, give me a noun.
Give you what?
A noun.
A noun.
Yeah.
I was thinking of smell, but I can't, or smelly. But that's not a noun. It's an adjective.
What's something smelly?
Smelly? Limburger cheese.
Let's get something that's not cheese. Jaster.
A book.
A book.
Look, okay.
If your character hates books and you decide that during the creation process, and it ever comes up as the story's moving along and as we're building it, that now there's a book, that's a special moment for your character that they can have. And maybe books never come up. But if your character hates books and they come up, that's going to be a lot of fun for telling the story. And I don't know, maybe even we could contrive and force that kind of thing to happen. Like, my character hates fish, and suddenly there's a fish. I'm all up in arms about it, and it's going to distract from the story, and it's going to inject some more humor that we weren't expecting, and things like that.
So is that a way of generating flaws as well, Arec? Is that one way of thinking about the flaws, that it could be?
It could be. Let's say I dislike something like affection, and two of our characters are romantically involved. And anytime they're romantically involved, like that just really gets under my skin. And that would be a flaw of mine, that I can't handle that. I can't be around those people. But maybe as a strength, I'm, fiercely independent, and I don't know. All right, so then you come up with your backstory. I always find it hard giving characters the names. I usually outsource that to some more creative people than me, if you could believe that. But yeah, they got to have a name at some point. After the characters are made, we fill in the rest of the story. So to make it an actual murder mystery rather than a fiction novel, we'll want to add in the means, opportunity, what are the different plot points, both before the party and during the party. So there's going to be some backstory, some things that happened before we all got together and the murder happened. And then there's going to be things that we do afterwards. Maybe it branches in a couple different directions depending on what we choose during the game, but we'll decide on the storyline. If there are extra characters we need to add in, NPCs are non-player characters. So jumping back to Max's idea for having someone who discovers a mystical, perhaps divine power inside of the cheese by doing something. That divinity, that entity now is an NPC that we can use for Deus Ex Machina type things, or revealing critical information, or whatever function we need it to fill. Other NPCs could be people that used to be here but aren't here anymore that we refer to, or someone that arrives and does something and then leaves. Red herrings. Murder mystery stories are more interesting when they're not easy. So we'll have some different threads that lead in different directions to throw people off. We'll have a sense of urgency and limited resources. Why do we have to solve the murder before everyone goes home for the night? Right? We need to take care of this quickly. Something is running out. The killer is still out there. The rest of us are are under threat. Any of those things, and then we'll wrap things up with a conclusion. So that's the process. Take a moment and look inward. Don't focus on me for a moment. Just notice what's going on in your brains and how you feel. And if anyone wants to share, I would encourage you to do so.
Arec, I feel like being so remote and isolated from, I guess, the rest of humanity, it makes something as serious as something like depression able to play a prominent role in character development. That feeling of being so far away from everything else about civilization.
Gotcha. Ryan, the question was, how are you feeling? But I feel like we still got an answer. Who wants to share how they're feeling in their head right now? Just in general.
It's great. I love this. It's got the juices flowing. You're missing a word on the slide here, the C word, which for me is creativity. And creativity is, I hate to say it's the new buzzword in corporate America. However, it's something that we haven't been using a lot. And I think it needs to come back with a vengeance, because that's, in fact, I think a tagline for you, like creating success, because that's what leads to innovation. That's what leads to relationships. Everything is a story. We're human beings. That's how we bond. And you can look at facts and figures and data about Q3 and Q4 all day long. But if you can't tell a compelling story, if you don't have buy-in from your entire organization on where you're headed, it's not going to matter. So if you can't create a future that everyone can buy into, because that's, to me, is what you're doing here. You're helping people create a future that people are willing to follow and are looking forward to. So that's my 2 cents on that, but I'm a branding dude, so I always look at it that way.
No, thanks, Josh. And you make a great point. Kind of what I'm fishing for here is when you go through a mental exercise that's different from what you normally do, when you get out of that normal path that your neurons are traveling in, and you're making new neural connections in your brain. That's that C word, creativity. So I hope that going through this process has kind of lit you up in your mind.
The word is alive. It makes you feel alive, like you're not in the same old routine.
Yeah. Show of hands, who's feeling that way?
I would say that a lot of times in all the things that life has, my brain always feels anxious and like there's a million things going through it, but I actually feel very calm, like going through this process, and it's been like really fun and it's really calmed everything. I don't know why, but that's a great feeling.
Yeah.
Arec, I was going to say, this is so outside my comfort zone because I'm a numbers person. There's black and white. And I guess maybe that's why I enjoy reading so much. I like murder mysteries. I read a lot of mysteries, and my goal is to see how they get to the end. And I believe I'm lacking in the ability to write stuff like that. That's why I read so much, because I love to see what other people have come up with.
I would say that everyone has the ability to create. We get in our own way, and I think what this process identifies is that one thing leads to another, and it's just getting started and having this conversation that we had as a group, having this conversation with yourself as you're going through it and creating something. And I hope that if this did brighten you up, that you that you try it out for yourself in whatever it is that you do. For some people, woodworking, making furniture, gardening, things like that, but trying something new outside of your normal routine. And
Well, Arec, the thing, so you've taken me back to my improv days. I love doing these kind of creativity activities, and that's a lot of what I do too, is helping people kind of get out of the way they currently think about things and think about it in a new way. And the thing I'm most interested about, and part of what Melissa may be experiencing, is that creativity is based on structure, right? People think that you have to have any sort of thing available, but you asked us a series of very specific questions, and you just have to make kind of an either or answer. And all of a sudden all of a sudden we're cruising on an asteroid in another galaxy, and cheese is playing a major role. And I always love how that comes together. Like, you just get these ideas that suddenly pull together, right? So I really appreciated this exercise. It's a fun way of doing it, and really, really good for getting the creative juices going.
Thank you, Andy. All right, that's it. At the end of the workshop, the thing that happens, I get asked about is, do we get to play the game? And unfortunately, creating the bones and the structure of the game only takes a few hours, but making it a playable game takes another 40 on my end. Including play testing, all that stuff. So we won't have a playable game, but the journey, like I pointed out at the beginning, the journey is the enjoyable part of this exercise. And we do learn some skills along the way. But I'll take any questions that people have, and then I'll turn it back over to Ryan.
I'm curious, who's your, not just ideal client, but how are you finding, how are you doing your reach out to find people? Are you working mainly with just organizations? I guess, I mean, it's not going to be individuals, but what type of organizations, and how are you finding them?
I have sent, I think, 3 quotes for this activity. And to be honest, I have not won any of them. People are more interested in the murder mystery games themselves. It's hard to conceptualize what this activity is going to be like unless you go through the demo and you're like, oh, okay, now I get it. But with all of my focus for the last 3 months being on the show that I'm producing, writing, starring in, all that stuff, I have not done a whole lot of corporate reach out, but I have had some cold contacts come in through the website and through social media, and a couple farmers markets that I've worked. And those are good sources of leads for me. Probably after the show, I'll pick back up on the networking side a little bit more, hit on LinkedIn, write some posts, things like that. But thank you for the question, Josh.
I don't know what your show is, but if you ever need extras in the background, sometimes that gets expensive. I'll happily be your extra for free. I like just doing stuff like that.
Hey, thanks, Chaster. Where are you located?
I'm in Fishers, so
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Would you email me just so and like put in the subject line actor or something like that so I can find you later?
Not an actor. I'm not an actor at all. I'll be your extra.
What is this show that you're doing? You should tell us about that.
Sure. I wrote a murder mystery story based on Norse mythology, starring Loki and 5 other gods and giants. And one of the goddesses has been murdered. And of course, we think Loki did it. It's a one-man show. I'll be playing all 6 characters. It's going to be wild. It's a audience interactive type show. So the audience will get a chance to ask questions of all 6 characters as they come out and do their bit. And then it's a choose your own ending type thing, depending on who they accuse. If you search for, I'll type it in the chat as well, The God of Mischief's Murder Mystery, you'll find me on Facebook and Eventbrite for tickets. I've got 3 venues. Fishers is Roots School of Theater. And then Donuts and Dragons is at Keystone Clearwater Crossing. And then the shows that include a costume contest are at Storefront Theater of Indianapolis, and that is underneath the Vogue in Broad Ripple, where Crackers used to be, if you're that old.
Arec, I put the link to your Eventbrite in the chat. I was able to find it, and it seems to have all of your upcoming dates on it.
Thank you, Ryan. Oh, and I'm still seeking sponsors. Maybe you guys would be good to ask. I don't know. I need people who are looking for clients in the Broad Ripple area that are probably Gen X or millennials that have some discretionary entertainment budget. That's who's going to be at my show, right? And the sponsors will get a vendor table during the costume contest, and then they'll also be the judges of the costume contest. So all eyes on them as they decide who wins the prizes. That's all I've got. I'm not going to beat anyone over the head for more questions. So Ryan, back to you. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Well, if no one else has any questions for Arec, let's give him a hand for his presentation.